evil in human nature.
She wouldn't even harm a fly.
Just like I would tell you, if you're going to do something, do it well. And leave something witchy. Leave a sign to let the world know that you were there.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Okay. Hey everyone.
Oh, sorry.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Undercover Coven, the last episode of the year.
Welcome back.
Ale's voice is gone again.
It is gone again. I'm sorry. I've been sick, I feel, for like a month, but it's fine.
I feel like it's been 2 months.
I feel like it's been 2 months, yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to do something a bit different to celebrate the end of the year. We're going to do some scary stories because we like to hear and read stories like creepypastas and NoSleep stories on Reddit, things like that, right?
Yes. But first, actually, we're going to announce, so our contest is done for the year. So we're going to announce the winners, which actually I found out that one of the reviews was actually my sister, and she did not tell me. So I guess
the winner.
So we're gonna announce the winner of the review contest that we had, and that will be Mike Ryle. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but is at Mike Ryle. Bryle 940 in on Twitter. That's where we'll be communicating with him. So yay!
Thanks so much.
For you.
And we're gonna read what you said because honestly, like I was so surprised when I read it. And
I know it was really nice. It was really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So his review was on which was the app that he was listening on?
He tweeted at me today. It was the Podcast Republic app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he said, if you like to get in on the ground floor of new podcasts, then this is the one. If you like weird and unusual, then why you dragging your feet? Give this podcast a listen. So that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So anytime you're ready, you can just tweet at us or send us a DM on Instagram. Give us a video or what you want to say on our Instagram story, and we'll be happy to post it.
Yes. You'll be featured in our Instagram, so...
yeah.
Have fun with it.
So today we're going to be, like I said before, 2 scary stories. 2 each. One are, Ali's are kind of short. Mine's are kind of long. I don't know why.
We just chose our favorite Reddit stories that we found.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they're I don't know. I love them. I kind of found them last minute because I was kind of losing hope, but I really like them.
I like mine too. They're so cool.
I'm excited to listen to yours. You already edited mine.
Yeah, I already edited yours. Okay, so everybody, Happy New Year. I hope this New Year is great for you, and I hope it's great for us too, Ale, because
yes,
our podcast is going to be amazing this year. It's going to be so good.
We will put... Well, we already put effort into it, but
more.
It's one of my New Year resolutions to like work really hard on this because I'm just having a lot of fun with it. So
yeah, me too. And Ale, Happy New Year to you, and I love you.
Happy New Year to you.
And
love you too.
Yeah.
And to all of you guys, Happy New Year. Hope you have a great start of your year.
Yes. Maybe
it's on a Monday.
Maybe start by listening to our podcast.
Exactly.
And so
don't party too hard.
Yeah.
Or do. I mean, up to you.
If you guys like any of the stories we read, please let us know. And if you have any stories you like, let us know also. Please. We love to read anything that's scary.
Yes, believe us.
Yeah, and
anything.
We'll be coming at you next week with something really cool. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Remember to catch us on Twitter and Instagram, too.
Yes, at Undercover Coven.
Undercover Coven, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm so out of it. Okay,
okay, Happy New Year,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. So I got this on the subreddit Horror Stories and Scary Stories Daily. It's called VR Horror Story. This story happened last week when I got my PS4 VR headset. My mom got it for me for an early Christmas present. I thanked her and went upstairs to my room. I finished getting the VR ready and played some games with it. My mom came in 5 minutes later telling me that her and my dad were going last-minute Christmas shopping for the rest of our family. She said I could either stay home and try out my VR or go shopping with them. I chose the first one. They left and I heard the door close. About 20 minutes after they left, I heard the back door open. How were they back so early? I heard a pair of feet walking up the stairs to the main floor. I heard them walking into every room, then someone talking. I just thought it was my mom and dad, so I texted my mom saying, "You came home early, I guess?" She replied seconds later saying, "What do you mean? We are still shopping." The second I read that text, my heart froze. I then heard of the strangers downstairs say, "Check upstairs, and if there's anyone up there, you know what to do." I didn't want to find out what they were going to do to me, so I had to find a way out. I looked out of my window and I jumped in one of the bushes below. Luckily, it didn't hurt. I started to run for about 2 minutes, then my mom called me. I explained everything and she called the police. The police entered the house to find the two 20 to 30-year-old men waiting outside of my room waiting for me to come out. Luckily, I didn't. We still don't know how they got into our house, but honestly, I never want to know.
This one is called The Most Amazing Weight Loss Treatment Ever by Miss Mia 33. Okay, this one is mostly for the ladies because we're moving into spring and spring is diet season because summer is just a few months down the road. I stumbled on this while I was doing work for my biology course and partially doing research online, and even though it was pretty rough, it worked like magic for me. A little bit of backstory. I was chubby from the time I was in elementary school. Not like massively obese, but I was definitely more than 5 or 10 pounds overweight. But with that added weight, it was really hard to get a date, and that didn't jive so well with me. I like partying, I like going out and having fun and being around people, and my body was really just holding me back. And you have to believe me when I say I tried everything. No carb diets, all fruit diets, veganism. I even did some really needlessly dangerous things like chew and spit. I could never bring myself to throw up, or just flat out starving myself. None of it ever worked anyway. Fast forward, I'm in college and we're doing a brief unit on parasitism. I know exactly what you're all thinking, and yeah, I will admit it. The second I discovered that you could use parasites like tapeworms and stuff as a weight loss aid, I went and started digging. The thing is, it turns out that it's not really as dangerous as they make it out to be. I read so many forums and it seems like there were only 2 kinds of complications that people ended up with. Either they overcompensated for what was being taken out and ended up gaining weight in the end, or they left it in too long and it made an exit on its own that ended up in a trip to a hospital. It took a lot of studying and a lot of really careful planning, but eventually I sort of figured out how you could toe the middle of the line and not screw it up that badly. The trick seemed to be to starve the little sucker out. Maximum weight loss, since you could be burning fat. Hopefully, none of the complications. It turns out you can't just really buy parasites to infect yourself with on Amazon. That's where I hit my first snag. It took me a couple of weeks, and in the end I had to put up a Craigslist ad before I got any leads at all. When I finally got a bite, I had to meet the guy in a really skeevy motel downtown to close the deal. I took them right there. It's definitely weird to think that you're intentionally introducing a parasite like a tapeworm into your body. Weird and kind of gross at first, but you work past it eventually. It helped that the guy I bought it from was really appreciative and enthusiastic. Kind of a pervert, but I was sort of expecting it, coming from Craigslist. I ended up having to go back to him 2 more times over as many months. It turns out that sometimes your body is able to fight off an infestation like that. After the 3rd time, it really took. I know because I had been obsessively taking tests, I was admittedly stealing from the biolab. By then, we'd already finished our unit on parasites, so no one ever knew they'd gone missing. So where does this magic weight loss come in? It doesn't right away. It takes time for your new little friend to latch on in there enough to start sucking nutrients. You will get nauseous. There's no avoiding it. At first, mine was bad enough that I started keeping a trash can by my bed so that in the morning I could roll out and empty my stomach right there. It passes though, after a few weeks. You want to start taking vitamins right away. I admit I also cut way back on the calories during this time, probably more than I should have, because I was paranoid about overdoing it. And I figured as long as I was popping multivitamins, I wouldn't get malnourished so badly that I ended up super sick. And hey, it totally worked. I admit there was a point where I experienced a little bit of hair thinning because I was apparently not taking enough vitamins. This was after about 2 months. I started adding more protein powder to my diet to offset it a little. I don't know if it helped or not, but I'd never developed a huge bald spot, so it was okay. Here's the thing about doing it this way. The results do take some time. I promise you, it pays off though. It will vary a little, lady to lady, based on a whole huge bunch of things. But if you do it right, at some point the weight will literally just melt off of you. For me, it was after about 5-6 months. It was a little scary and painful when I realized the parasite had finally died and was on its way out. I skipped class to hole up in the bathroom while it passed. And once the solids were out, the rest of the built-up retained water was gone within another week. When it was all said and done, I had dropped 20 pounds. And after another month or two of a good diet and lots of more vitamins, I was feeling well enough to start attending class regularly again. I don't think you want to risk staying infected any longer than I did, is the thing. After that point, the fetus is so developed it starts to show. And it's a lot bigger, so it's harder to get rid of when you finally miscarry.
I found this one in the NoSleep thread, NoSleep subreddit, and it's called, Alexa, who else is in my house? I know. My friends insisted I'd made the wrong choice and that Google Home was a better overall product. I pushed back saying I was mostly concerned with the smart home features. Based on the reviews I'd read, Amazon Echo seemed to be the way to go. But as my friends pointed out, even articles that are a year old are about a year out of date with the way updates are rolled out. Whatever. I was happy with the gift I'd bought myself. I just moved into my first split-level house and had spent a few weeks doing the usual settling in, getting unpacked, sitting at my TV, and installing all my smart home crap that I bought. The upstairs-downstairs Echo pair was the last addition because I had such a hard time deciding which way to go. But with the decision made, all of my uncertainty faded into a distant memory. As soon as I'd unboxed them, I got them set up, downloaded the app, and began pairing all of my smart home devices to it. I began playing with routines, creating my own voice profile, testing the intercom features between the two units, and generally, just playing with my new toy. It was almost midnight before I finally laid down and fell asleep, expectantly awaiting the trip of my 6:15 a.m. wake-up routine consistent of an alarm, followed by a traffic and weather report. I woke in the middle of the night to Alexa reciting the news from the unit downstairs. The volume was turned all the way up, just as I received it, and I realized what a mistake it was not to have adjusted the setting. I went downstairs and told her to stop before turning the volume down. The clock said it was 3:30 a.m. Did I set the wrong time zone, or did the time zones not sync? That doesn't make any sense. Still groggy, I headed back upstairs to the bed, dismissing it as a fluke. I woke at the expected time, got ready, and went to work. Intermittently through the first day, I'd check the cameras and thermostat, not really expecting anything, but doing so for the sheer of the novelty of it. As expected, everything appeared to be in order. The night I went through the same routine, yet again the unit downstairs tripped at max volume and began reciting the news. This time, however, it was 2:10 a.m. I was irritated, but told her to stop, and I reset the volume once more before falling back asleep. The following night, it happened again. Again, the volume was at maximum, only this time it didn't occur a single time. It went off 3 times. The first time I chalked it up to user error. Maybe I reset the volume on accident. The second time, I know I reset the volume. And after the third time, I unplugged the unit. I was irritable the next day, and it was clear to my coworkers. Most tried to ignore my attitude, but my buddy Dan wouldn't let me slide. "So, why are you acting like such a dick today? Too many TPS reports?" He grinned. I frowned. "No, I haven't been sleeping well. You know how I moved into my new house? Well, I got a smart home system set up, and it's been glitching or something. It keeps waking me up in the middle of the night as if it were being prompted. I called the helpline and they couldn't find any reason for the unit to be malfunctioning, but they asked me to send it anyway. He nodded. Did you try listening to the recordings to see what might be setting it off? I looked at him confused. Huh? What do you mean? He says, it records recent conversations, like if you wake it up, it will start recording. I don't know, maybe you have an ice machine on your fridge, or something that comes on and sets it off. It's not common, but it happens sometimes. I blushed embarrassed that I missed that little detail in the setup manual, and excused myself. When I finally figured out how to replay recordings, my hands grew clammy, and my mouth went dry as all sorts of supernatural possibilities ran through my mind. The first several dozen recordings were of me playing with the features and were clearly labeled. Then came the entry from the middle of the first night. Text not available. Click to play recording. My finger hovered over the prompt for a moment before I summoned the courage to click it. At first, all I could hear were the buzz and pops of the ambient noise and the deep thrum of the heater running. Then it made out something else that was indistinct. At first, barely audible. I focused. She can't do this. She can't do this. She can do. Then the recording stopped. My legs felt like jelly and I had to sit before I pulled out the other entries labeled text not available. Click to play recording. There were a lot of them. Most of them came during the day. Some came at night but hadn't woken me up. Most were the same. For a few moments it was just ambient noise, then the voice began. I'll do it. They don't know. They can't. She did it. I'll show her. End. Next recording. I'll do it next time. Next time. She can't. I can't keep waiting. I'll do it. She keeps ignoring me. I'm right here, waiting. End. Next recording. Tomorrow night. I can't wait. I give her every chance to apologize. I can't wait. I can't wait. End. It took me a few minutes to collect myself and recover from the shock before calling the police and pleading with them to search my house for an intruder. Thank God they did. They found an emaciated man who had contorted himself into the unused laundry chute across from the counter where I placed my downstairs unit. He was cradling a pair of garden shears and mumbling nonsense when they pulled him out. We still don't know why he was there, nor who he is. The previous owner of the house had no relation to him as well. And well, I'm not a woman, so I couldn't have been the intended victim. But that wouldn't have mattered much if he had decided one night to unfurl from the darkness and make his way into my room.
This is Beware of the Sunnyside Retirement Center by S.A. Newman. The choice to put my dad in a nursing home was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. I tried to put it off as long as possible, but Dad's health had been on a steady decline since we had lost Mom a couple of years back. He was a stubborn, fiercely independent individual who had spent a tough life growing up in farm country, and just the thought of spending one night in an old folks' home, as he would put it, made him speak with a special kind of anger that I rarely got to witness anymore. No fucking way. That would be his usual response in his old grouchy voice, just before he'd spit saliva on the ground in front of my shoes. Dad has dealt with bouts of shortness of breath and anxiety, and it was his last trip to the hospital that seemed to convince him to flip his decision about the whole thing. I got the call while I was at work in the middle of my shift. My supervisor was gracious enough to let me clock out early, and thanks to me speeding down the highway, I was there in 20 minutes. The social worker at the hospital came in to talk to us about getting support at home for Dad. She wasn't the usual one I had known from Dad's previous visits, but she seemed nice enough. Like before Dad managed to blurt out his usual response while he was struggling to breathe with a nasal cannula tube in his nose. No fucking way. I was expecting the social worker to respond when my dad spoke up again. Surprising both of us with what he said next, it was like a switch had been flipped. I don't want to go back home. I can honestly say we were in shock. This man who had been fighting me tooth and nail for 2 years about getting any kind of assistance, just declared he was surrendering. Dad went on to say that this incident was an eye-opener for him, but he later admitted, with tears forming in his eyes, that above all else, he was lonely. He had tried to fill the void that Mom had left when she passed with drinking and spending time with all his tractors. But in the end, he couldn't make it work, and was too proud to just admit how lonely he had become. He was a man's man after all, and I knew how hard letting all this out was for him. The social worker at the hospital gave us a brochure for a new place that had opened in the area. Sunnyside Retirement Center. Better than living at home. I was a bit taken aback by the slogan. I had to admit, though, it was bold, and the pictures in the brochure looked incredible. I showed it to Dad. He stared at it for the longest time before saying anything. He spoke again without swearing at us. Okay, I'll give it a chance. I silently thanked God and smiled. The social worker said she would work on setting up a tour and start the admission paperwork right away. I studied the brochure some more as Dad took a nap. I recognized the address as it was in an area that I passed every day along a highway on my way to work. I realized that I had never noticed anything there before. What hit me as even more strange was that I always remembered the area as an empty open field. No structure of any kind had been there for years. It was basically a large empty concrete lot. I know construction jobs go a lot quicker these days, but not that fast, right? Something about this troubled me. I suddenly had a lot of questions, but the social worker had disappeared before I could ask. I guess we'll find out more soon. Dad should get out of here tomorrow. We'll go for a tour then. I knew Dad would be a very hard sell about being placed anywhere. We had done it for Mom in her later years at a nursing home in town. It had been the only place taking admissions in the area at the time, but I always hated going there. It smelled like piss as soon as you walked through the door. The staff didn't seem to give a shit about anything besides yapping and playing on their phones, and Mom would always seem so sad. She had been diagnosed with dementia, and the two of them just couldn't make it work at home, so we felt we had no choice. Sometimes it seems like she didn't even recognize us, so you could imagine my surprise when the social worker at the hospital gave us a brochure for a new place that had opened in the area. My surprise to Dad's reaction. After helping Dad into the car, we were on our way. I had made sure to pack some of his clothes and farming magazines that he liked to look at. He saw the bag and muttered, "Did you pack my whiskey too?" "Somehow I don't think they'll be allowed. Besides, you said you'd give this a chance." He mumbled something I couldn't make out, and soon after we arrived. I have to say, the look of the building took my breath away a bit. The landscaping was immaculate, with small shrubs and trees lining the outside with a large water fountain positioned near the front entrance. We pulled up under a huge awning to double-sliding glass doors. "It's like a casino." Dad hadn't sworn yet, so I was taking this as a good sign. We were met by a representative of the facility, Susan. She was dressed very professionally, wearing a gray skirt and blouse with a matching gray jacket, her perfectly white teeth that showed whenever she smiled. We went on the tour, seeing the apartments, exercise room, lounge areas, and the dining room. I couldn't quite read how Dad was taking in everything, but I was sold. Bright lighting everywhere, laminate floors, and fully furnished private apartments. In the end, Dad said he liked it, and we ended the day moving him into room 215. I never did get a chance to ask about how seemingly quick the place had gone up overnight. The next few days went by pretty uneventful. I talked to Dad for a bit on the phone each day, and he would tell me the transition was going pretty well so far. He had hit it off a bit with another man there named Bill. Hearing all this made me so happy. I really wanted this to work for Dad. Soon after, though, our conversations began to shift to a darker tone. The first time I noticed something was off was when I called Dad to talk. We had set a time each day so he would ready for my call. When I asked how he was doing, he almost sounded nervous to me as he stuttered. Now's not a good time, John. I need to go." His answer perplexed me completely. "Dad, is something wrong? I thought everything was going good so far." For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. I could hear Dad's breathing getting heavy. "Dad, are you there?" He responded. This time it seemed like he was whispering into the phone. "John, I shouldn't talk over the phone. They might be listening in." I tried to ask him who, but all he said next was that I needed to get up here so we could talk more. I made the drive as soon as I got off of work. When I got to Dad's room, he had the door locked. Finally, after convincing him to let me in, he quickly shut the door, redoing the lock. Over the next hour, we sat in his living room, and I listened as his words spelled out. He told me that strange things had been happening since his third night here, Dad said that he had been hearing people skulking outside his apartment door at night, and that they were communicating in some bizarre-sounding language. Now I knew that Dad was still pretty sharp for his age, so I didn't instantly believe it was some kind of delusion. As for the unknown language, I summarized that some of the staff who worked there at night were foreign and hadn't quite picked up English yet. Dad dismissed that notion. He said the sounds they made when they spoke wasn't like anything he had ever heard before. Almost animal, like he said. I looked at him and could see how genuinely scared he was by all this. He also told me that he had been seeing lights flashing outside of his window at night. Not ambulance lights like you might expect at a retirement center, but just seemingly random white lights. I didn't ask if he ever peeked through the blinds to see what they actually were. The expression of fear on his face told me enough. I left later that night after Dad ate dinner and got ready for bed. I told him I would look into what he had told me, but honestly, I didn't know what to believe. This all could be some sort of mental trauma from the move, so maybe Dad just needed more time to make the adjustment. I had to get up early for work the next day, so I just put the last few hours in the back of my mind as I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, while I was getting ready for work, I saw I had a voicemail from Dad. I had kept the phone on silent, so I never heard it ring. Instantly worried, I listened to the voicemail. What I heard was maybe the most horrific thing I ever exposed my ears to. I wish I had taken Dad more seriously. "They got Bill! Jesus Christ, John, they came and took him last night. I could hear him begging them to stop. Then all of a sudden it was silent, and the lights came back. John, get me out of here! Help me!" I replayed the message that Dad had left several times. I was forced to hold the phone away from my ear as it sounded like he was screaming. I didn't know what to do. If I was going to call off work, it would have to be now. If Dad had been showing signs of a mental breakdown, I would have thought someone from Sunnyside would have called me. In the end, I decided to go to work and stop by to see Dad afterward. The whole day I felt like an awful son. I know Dad was having a hard time with the transition. Even the social worker from the hospital told us it would take time. I checked my phone a few times. No more messages from Dad and no messages from Sunnyside. My guess was that Dad had probably come to his senses. I would see him later anyway to hear all about it. I left work and arrived at Sunnyside around dinner time. I went to Dad's room 215. But Dad wasn't there. In fact, his whole apartment had been cleaned out, furniture and all. I went to the dining room. He wasn't there either. At this point, my heart was beginning to pound in my chest. I went to the nurse's station by Dad's room and inquired if he had been moved to another room. The nurse on duty smiled and said she didn't know who I was talking about. I demanded to see my father, pounding my clenched fists on the desk counter. Then I heard a voice from behind me. I recognized it as Susan's, the woman we had met on our initial arrival. I hadn't even heard her walk up behind me, and she smiled at me with those pearly whites, wearing the same exact outfit as before. Gray skirt, gray jacket. "Hello, John. Wonderful to see you again. Can I help you with something?" "Where the fuck is my dad? I got a voicemail from him last night. He sounded absolutely terrified, and now it's like he's vanished. Where is he?" I stepped towards her as I noticed several of the facility's employees had already begun to step towards me. Encircling me, in fact. "Come with me, John. I'll show you where your dad is." We made our way towards the main dining room, where Dad usually ate his meals. Susan entered first, then beckoned me in. The other staff were still following us, like they had all stopped working for this moment. The tables were mostly filled, a few random seats still empty. "So where is he? I swear, if you people have done something to him, I'll—" I was interrupted by Susan, who had walked over to one of the food carts, picked up a plate, and brought it back to me. She held it up to me. It looked like roast beef with some various vegetables. "Okay, so what? I'm going to ask you one more time before I call the cops." "Here is your dad." Susan held up the plate higher to her face, closed her eyes, and inhaled deeply. Smells so delicious. My mind had to catch up to what she was indicating. "No, that's impossible. You couldn't have. That's murder." "Oh, but we had to, John. Your dad was a problem for us. He chose not to join us, so we had to take certain measures. I stood there for what seemed like an hour, staring at the plate of steaming meat, the plate now sitting down on a table. The chunk of meat was still bleeding. I then looked at Susan, at all of them. I wish I could forget what I saw next. All the residents sitting in the dining room stood up at once from their tables, pushed their chairs in, and walked towards us. In a moment, I was completely surrounded. Susan turned to one of the other workers and said 2 words. "Show him." The worker lifted up her shirt to reveal her bare stomach and what looked like something pulsating just beneath the skin surface. It looked like a large mass trying to push its way through to the surface. I then watched in stunned silence as the mass traveled up to her chest and into her neck, causing it to bulge and retract. "My God, you're not human!" All of them began to twist their bodies in sickly and disturbing ways, their skin stretching with masses pushing up just below the surface. All except Susan. She just continued to stare and smile at me intently. "You monsters! Dad was right! You killed the other guy too, didn't you? Did you eat him?" "Oh, Bill, yes. Well, he was also a problem. He tasted more like what you call pork, though. Not our first choice for meat." I couldn't take it anymore. This wasn't happening. I watched as Susan raised her hand and the withering crowd snapped back to human form. The residents returned to their seats and began to devour their meals greedily. They were eating what was left of my dad. I hit my end and everything went black. I woke up in my home, having no clue how I had gotten there. I immediately found my phone next to me and was preparing to dial 911 when I found a piece of paper next to the phone. There was a note written. "Dear John, I'm so sorry you had to see all that last night. We hadn't planned on revealing ourselves yet to your people. And yes, just in case you were wondering, it was all real. We are real. Don't waste your time calling the authorities. We have infiltrated and watched, ready in case any more problems should arise. Accept what happened and move on. We cannot be stopped. Our takeover cannot be stopped. Sincerely, Susan, Director of Sunnyside Retirement Center. Better than living at home." So now you know what I know. These things are here, and I don't know how many they are, or where they all are. How can I live myself knowing that innocent people are being slaughtered, or worse, and not do anything about it? It gets worse, though. I looked up Sunnyside Retirement Center online this morning, just out of morbid curiosity, I guess. There's not just one of them. They're a nationwide company. Over 500 locations in the US already, and many more are being planned soon. And they're all taking applications for new residents. God help us all.